Shashi Sareen, yes, I can see her. Shashi Sareen, so many of us who are ex-BIS know her. She was in BIS, she was Director EIC, Export Inspection Council, subsequently in FAO. Huge food safety, food regulation expert. Why I'm thanking her is because it's she who took me to Export Inspection Council in the year 2000, which actually broadened my horizon. So, Praveerji, you don't have to be too regretful. I don't think BIS broadened our horizons as much as it should have. But going to EIC actually took me on a journey. That's where the foundation was laid of what I have become today, uh, partly at least, if not fully. So thank you very much, Shashi, for having taken me to EIC so many years ago. That was 20 years ago. What I learned over my career is that while you may be an expert in a particular area, you need to know the big picture. Unless you know the big picture and you know your position in that big picture, and you know the interfaces between your area and that big picture, you would remain still slightly incomplete. Of course, you were never complete. Learning goes on, and it goes on for me even today. So one of the things that I learned was about WTO agreements and the rules for international trade as far as standards, etc., are concerned. So let me start. What happened? My yeah, okay. So internationally, WTO was established on 1 January 1995 as a successor to GATT, what was called GATT earlier. And what happened with that establishment WTO was that the tariff barriers were coming down, they were dismantled. The tariffs are being lowered again and again, and I'm sure you people have been reading the newspaper and the demands on India to reduce tariffs. There used to be some quantitative restrictions in terms of how much you can export or how much a country will accept from a particular country in terms of import. Those are also gone. And the aim was that there should be free flow of trade, and there's a global market where everybody can access equally. The tariff barriers are replaced by non-tariff barriers, which means now duties were not the barriers. There will be other kinds of barriers. It could be standards, it could be customs procedures, number of them. And by an estimate, quality and safety represent the biggest chunk of non-tariff barriers. And there's another study done by WTO which shows that 70% of the trade concerns raised in WTO TBT committee have been due to conformity assessment, not due to standards, but to conformity assessment. So given this scene, it was necessary to lay down rules and discipline the field of standards, regulations, etc. And these rules have been written in various WTO agreements. There are a number of them. Agreement on agriculture, agreement on services. There are a number of them, and I don't even know, I think there were 19, and I wouldn't know all the agreements. But three that relate to us in some way or the other. For two people who are in standards and quality, these three agreements. One is technical barriers to trade. Its actually name is Agreement on Technical Barriers to Trade, commonly called TBT agreement. The second is Agreement on Sanitary and Phytosanitary Measures, commonly called SPS agreement. And third, very little known agreement on pre-shipment inspection, because it's something which doesn't apply to us. It is available to LDCs, the least developed countries, to protect themselves against dumping of substandard goods into their market. So one doesn't have to read this agreement. Of course, Bangladesh uses it in India, so some interface is there. The mother agreement is the TBT agreement. It applies to all products other than those covered by SPS agreement. And the SPS agreement covers food and animal and plant products. SPS agreement is primarily about human health, animal health, and plant health. So it covers those areas. Leave those areas out, rest all products are covered, or so-called industrial products are covered under TBT agreements, and these rules apply. And these rules lay down requirements which relate to technical regulations, and I'll explain what that is, standards and conformity assessment, idea being to ensure free flow of trade. One very important thing this agreement did was to redefine terms, standards and technical regulations. Earlier in the ISO terminology, and even in BIS, some of ex-BIS would remember, we used to use very freely the terms voluntary and mandatory standards. This was discarded by TBT agreement. And standards now by definition are voluntary. So when we say standards in international fora, if you say standards, it means voluntary by very definition. So you're not talking regulations when you're talking standards. Just to give you those definitions, when you see the definition, you realize they're almost the same, except one significant change, which is in case of technical regulation, compliance is mandatory. And please remember, this TBT agreement applies to products, not to services. There is a separate agreement, GATS, for services, General Agreement for Trade in Services. There is a separate agreement. So this agreement applies to products only. And this is the definition which has been laid down for technical regulation, a document which lays down product characteristics or their related processes. So you could cover something like QMS in medical devices or GMP in the drug into the, it's not merely product requirement, but related process and production methods, including the applicable administrative provisions. So the administrative provisions will be how you check compliance. So technical regulation will be a combination of what was earlier called standard on one side and the conformity assessment procedure on the other side. Both put together, and any other administrative requirements will be technical regulation, with which compliance is mandatory. So these documents may deal with terminology, symbols, packaging, etc. And then here is the definition of standard. And as you will see, almost the same. But the essential difference, the compliance is not mandatory. So this definition this text comes from TBT agreement. So one thing we should be clear when we are talking, especially for products, we are talking regulations or we are talking standards. And if you're talking standards, we are talking voluntary standards. If we are talking regulations, we are by definition talking enforced requirements, and I'm not using the term standards now, product requirements enforced by law. Now, there are certain salient features of this agreement. Some of them are principles across WTO. Number one, the TBT agreement recognizes that countries may prescribe compulsory requirements on grounds such as, I have highlighted such as, because these are not the only 5 grounds. It says such as, so it leaves some leeway for adding some more grounds to this. On grounds of national security, something like telecom regulation is being done now in India since last year, I think, which is based on concerns about the connectivity of telecom networks and etc. So national security is being involved. Deceptive trade practices, for example, way back in the 80s, cement was placed under regulation, compulsory ISI mark, because there was too much of adulteration of cement. That was deceptive trade practice. Or gold jewelry is now being placed under compulsory regulation. It was first announced January 2021. Now I'm told it's June 2021. Hallmarking by BIS is being made compulsory. That is also, there's no issue of health or safety involved there. It is the issue of deceptive trade practice. Health, of course, well understood, whether it's drugs, that's health. Even medical devices are an issue of health. Safety, things like electrical appliances, which should be safe. Things like what you're using at home, LPG cylinders, all kinds of cylinders, actually, pressure cylinders. And environment, I think everybody understands environmental regulations and products. Things like, the petrol of or vehicles with certain BS4, etc., etc. Now, another feature of this agreement is that it encourages, does not mandate, it does not say that you must adopt international standards, but it encourages adoption of international standards in your regulations, that is. All over, but certainly in your regulations. And adoption of international standards is not deemed to be a barrier, because it is felt that if you adopt international standards, you are actually facilitating trade. When everybody adopts international standards, it's same everywhere, so it's easier to trade. And therefore, there is increased relevance of international standards in trade, both for products as well as systems. Like I said, it's not only products, it's systems also. It's QMS in medical devices, it's GMP in drugs. If we go to SPS agreement, it's GMP, GHP, HACCP in food. So it's both products and systems. Incidentally, TBT agreement does not mention any international standards setting body. The SPS agreement does mention Codex, for example, but TBT does not mention any international standard setting body. One of the reasons could be that ISO, IEC, which are widely accepted as international standard setting bodies, are actually private bodies, and therefore, in an agreement of governmental agreement, it might not have been considered appropriate to have private bodies listed. Then there is a principle of transparency, which means you must provide sufficient time for interested parties to comment, which includes foreign countries. You need to notify your regulations to WTO, give enough time for comments, and your regulations should be public. They should be publicly available. Of course, you need a legislative framework. Governments by themselves are not having any power unless there is an act which gives them that power. Let's be very clear on that. Government by itself has no power. Government can't tell you unless there is an act which gives the power to tell you something. So we need a legislative framework for having regulations in place. Then we have this requirement of national treatment, which means that you have to have the same requirements for domestic industry which you have for overseas producers, which means you cannot have differential regulations for imports and domestic market. You can't have that, okay, let's stop imports by having stringent requirements at the border, but internally we can have lenient requirement. That's not possible. So it works both ways. It cuts both ways. If you want regulations in place, they will apply as much to you. They can't be used for just stopping imports. Then there's another principle called most favored nation, MFN principle, which is most favored nation principle. Contrary to what it seems to imply, most favored nation, I can't have Bhutan as India can't have Bhutan as most favored nation. It says that if you extend a consideration to one country, you have to extend the same consideration to every other country. So requirements have to be applied equally to all countries. You can't differentiate. It has some provision for exceptions. You can have an exception in a regional agreement. For example, EU within EU, you can have an exception from this. Or for least developed countries, there is some exception for about some certain period of time. This agreement also talks of some mutual recognition of conformity assessment. In fact, mentions accreditation in Article 6. So there's a provision that across borders, you can accept test reports or inspection reports or certifications as equivalent from your trading partners. It has another provision for special and differential treatment to developing countries. So if a developed country puts in a regulation, it can actually exempt for some time a developing country from complying with that regulation. It also enjoins on, or rather urges, the developed countries to provide technical assistance to developing countries. And a lot of assistance has been provided in the past, in the last 20 years, 25 years. India has been recipient of a number of, I think, European Commission projects, funded projects for capacity building. And this is not merely charity. We should realize that this has certain interest involved. If Europe is dependent on a lot of products from India, then it is also a concern that the quality of those products is okay. It meets their regulations. So they are willing to spend money on building your capacity so that you can supply to their requirements. So it's not merely charity being done. It has a certain interest. Something that India has not really done. We should have been, frankly, in my view, given the state that we are in, we should have been providing technical assistance to several developing countries, say in SAARC or African countries or CIS countries. I think we have missed that opportunity. And China has all over the place. Or it is GIZ, Germany all over the place, or UNIDO all over the place. And then there is a provision for dispute settlement, which is like an appeal provision. You can utilize, there have been disputes among countries, they have gone to dispute settlement. It's a long drawn process, very expensive, but there are issues which can be raised. But initially the issues are raised in TBT committee as STCs, specific trade concerns, and most of them get resolved in TBT committee itself. So what are the implications? I mean, these were the broad, features of the agreement. So what are the implications now? First implications is that international standards relevance goes up because it says that you should use international standards for in your regulations. We have to recognize that every country has to recognize that if there is an international standard under drafting, it is a potential tool for regulation if it is an area of health or safety. So we have to be very careful when international standards are being made. And what happens is that there is pressure on India, pressure on everybody, all countries to adopt international standards. It comes from foreign goods coming in. I'm sure all of you would remember the kind of TVs we used to get. When I bought my first TV, it was BPL. I remember in 1980, 88? And today that brand is gone, or Onida or Diana or whatever. They are all gone. It's coming from exports. If you are trying to export, you have to meet international standards. It comes from our NGOs. Lots of NGOs, they argue that why should we not have international standards within India? And sometimes they succeed. For example, I remember one very famous case of packaged drinking water where CSE, Sunita Narayan, made so much noise that BIS was forced to adopt international standards. Even funding agencies, they might prescribe when they give you assistance that you must meet international standards. So I remember having done a training for, I think, NTPC years back. And I asked them, why are they going for 14,001? And they said, they are getting some word back assistance. And one of the requirements is that they must have ISO 14,001 certification. So there are various ways in which we are under pressure to adopt international standards. Of course, I am a great advocate of adopting international standards. Therefore, our participation becomes very vital. And my experience of having been in 2 ISO committees, spent over 5 years attending those meetings, is that unless you are in that room where the standards are actually being written, you will lose out. And we need to have experts, couple of experts for years together who should be there. And that's something which we have not been able to achieve, although a decision was done that government is willing to fund such expertise. But it hasn't really happened on the ground yet. But let's hope it will happen. Now, given the WTO agreement, TBT agreement, we should realize that there are clearly 2 regimes which are operating world over. One is the regulated regime, the regulatory regime, where regulations will apply. And the other is voluntary, where there will be no regulations. It's just voluntary. Of course, there is an overlap also. We'll talk about it. So there are regulated areas based on primarily on health and safety, environment, deceptive trade practice, national security, even energy efficiency. I mean, that's another ground on which regulations are there. You know, BE regulations on energy efficiency. So when I said such as these 5 grounds, the 6th one you can add, energy efficiency. So we know that food is under regulation, electrical appliances, toys in India, just about, I think they have postponed the date to January. They've just about been brought into regulation, should have been in red here. So red means we are not regulating yet. Gas appliances, safety equipment, electronics, IT and telecom goods. Telecom goods, very little actually right now. I think few products only. Textiles, I don't think we regulate. Children wear for things like inflammability. Medical devices, you know the situation today. We are on the way, but only very partially regulated. Lead in paints is regulated in India. Machinery safety, we are not regulating. A draft is there. Chemicals safety, we are not regulating. A draft is being made. All this noise about PPEs, which get covered in medical devices, we are still forgetting industrial PPEs are not covered yet. So we have domestic regulation, some regime in place. We have Drugs and Cosmetics Act, we have Boilers Act, we have Telecom, some Telegraph Act. Sorry, it should be Telegraph Act. We have a Petroleum and Explosive Safety Organization in Nagpur, which regulates LPGs, etc., other kinds of cylinders, acetylene cylinder, LPG cylinder, things like that. And we have, of course, one act, BIS Act, which has a cross-sector applicability, and it's being used either for enforcing BIS certification compulsory, for example, in cement, electrical appliances, steel. There are a lot of goods which are under compulsory certification, or a registration scheme. They are now called Scheme 1 and Scheme 2 in the new BIS Act. They were earlier called certification and registration schemes. And registration scheme is being used for electronics and IT goods, where it's a very simple, nearing self-declaration. It's not self-declaration, but nearing self-declaration. But the important part is there's a huge deficit in technical regulations in India. We are probably 15% by an estimate, 15% of what Europe is doing. And this was recognized sometime in middle of 2017. And then an exercise began. It was recognized in commerce. And then an exercise began, which is continuing even now, where regulations are being made. So you will find that there is a spurt of regulations made especially under BIS Act over the last 2.5 years, and they are still under preparation. Then, as an industry, apart from complying with domestic regulations, you need to comply with international regulations. If you want to export, regulations are different. And one which I did not mention and I should have mentioned is that the TBT agreement as well as SPS agreement, they also say that you can adopt standards different from international standards or stricter than international standards based on a scientific justification. So if you have a justification, you can adopt international higher standards as well. So current situation is that our own regulations are not meeting international standards. Most of them are not meeting international standards. And therefore, we have to face more stringent regulations when we are exporting, which means more work for the industry and more pressure on, say, quality infrastructure. Do we have labs to test to international standards, etc.? Those kind of pressures also come in. Then there is, of course, the voluntary regime, which is operating in areas where there is no health and safety issue involved at all. So the people ask for 9,000 certification, they'll ask 14,000, and then even in regulated sectors, they ask for 22,000. Typically, these standards, voluntary standards, are made by national standards bodies, and they are a market demand. They are usually asked by the buyers, especially by organized buyers. But there are other factors which lead to growth of voluntary regime. Things like, if it's for marketing, I will take a certification because it helps me market my product. Or if it is to beat my competitor, product differentiation. Or even for government funding, for example, if MSME ministry encourages that you go for this and we'll fund you, people do go. But largely it is driven by market. And it started with foreign countries, foreign buyers insisting on, for example, 9,000 certification, but now increasingly in India also. Frequently the buyers are asking for 9,000 certification. Then of course you are aware there are industry driven experts. You have experts within your community on IATF 16949 or AS 9100 in aerospace or TL 9000 or the railways one, IRIS standard. So there are industry driven standards. The most troublemaking for India have been in the past these days, apart from the regulations of foreign countries, what were called till recently private standards. Private standards came from private stakeholders. They were on issues like fair trade or environmental issues, concerns about environment compliance, concerns about social issues like fair wages or child labor or worker safety. And these are there even in regulated sectors like food. So there are a number of private standards, SQF, BRC, Global Gap, IFS in food sector. Now there are a number, all these have come under the banner of GFSI, number of schemes. Or in other sectors like SA 8000 for social accountability, RAP for textiles. FSC and PEFC are two schemes in forestry, forest products. So even if a wooden handicraft or furniture may have to undergo some certification. By a rough estimate, there are over 500 such schemes operating around the world. And now these are being called voluntary sustainability standards or private sustainability standards. Sustainability has become now a big issue. Increasingly, people are asking whether they are sustainably managed products or they've gone through a life cycle analysis, for example. In India, we also initiated preparation of such. I didn't call them private. I was involved in initiating some of them. I said we'll use voluntary standards like ICMED or Ayush Mark scheme or IndGap or India ASAP. And now there are other players who have come in, and ideally there should be more scheme owners in India. And one example that I would like to give you is about NCCF, because they are the only ones to my mind who have gone ahead and got their scheme benchmarked internationally. I wanted to do it in QCI for some of the schemes. I did not succeed by the time I left. But NCCF has gone ahead, and I'm glad to be part of that setup also from day one, that they have been taking help from NABCB also. So we have our own systems here. Then there can be company or buyer specification. A Maruti may be asking you, or a Ford or a General Motors may ask you for specific specifications, which are also voluntary in a way in the market. I have already spoken about pressure from international funding agencies. These private standards are not discussed by government because they are outside. The governments will say, especially developed countries will say, this is none of our business. They are market driven. They are created by non-governmental stakeholders. We are not going to. But they are now getting referenced directly or indirectly, even in agreements. And those countries where there are a number of such schemes, they would expect that compliance to those schemes are sometimes being deemed compliance to regulations. So there are ways in which these are finding acceptance among regulators also. So industry has to gear up for all these standards apart from regulations. Apart from regulations, this whole regime of voluntary standards also applies in most cases. Very few areas where only regulations apply, nothing else. So this is how the structure will look like. Increasingly, in India also it's happening. The government will only be in policy making and enacting legislation. It should create independent regulatory bodies like it has done FSSAI at an arm's length from the government, so that day-to-day administration of regulation is left to the regulatory bodies. There will be national standards bodies like we have in BIS here, which will make voluntary standards, and they will have linked to regulatory bodies. Regulators may rely on their standards sometimes, not always. And there will be accreditation bodies. We have in India, NABCB and NABL. To my mind, one day they should merge into single one for technical competence of CABs, conformity assessment bodies. And then number of conformity assessment bodies, largely now in private sector. It has been recognized that conformity assessment is a private sector job, not government's job. So largely they are private sector, but in India we have some governmental bodies as well. We have BIS doing conformity assessment. The largest product certification scheme is run by BIS. We have STQC also into some kind of conformity assessment. A lot of government labs, you know that. Then next hierarchy level is manufacturer and service provider. Finally, the common man, and all of us are common men in terms of receiving these goods and services. So this is the structure that is coming up, and this is the infrastructure requirements that a country should have. We should have a nodal point for participation in international standards. We have for Codex, now it's FSSAI, Ministry of Health. It is also in Ministry of Agriculture now. BIS is there, DOT is there for ITU, which is Telecom Union. We should have information access points. There are SPS and TBT inquiry points where you can send your queries and get information. We should have a domestic regulatory mechanism. We have some in some kind, not the best. Personally, I don't think it's the best we have right now, but we have something in place. Because there is a provision for recognition, it's useful to have in India the system of EIC, where you can certify to foreign standards and get recognition because your domestic standards or domestic regulation. Okay, let me again use the right term. You can certify to importing countries' regulations, which are different from yours. Your domestic regulations being lower. So this has been a pretty useful mechanism for us. Not practiced in most countries, but for us pretty useful. The accreditation mechanisms which we have in place, NABL and NABCB, and conformity bodies, a number of them. There are a number of them, and yet you know that we faced a problem when we started test PPs. Even today, I think in 95 masks, I'm not sure whether we have a lab which can test completely. So we have gaps in these. While in broadly we have these structures, we have gaps which affect our ability to regulate. What are the issues facing India? To my mind, under regulation, I have already highlighted. So we should be all prepared. And as consultants, you should know that there are regulations coming, because when you are advising your clients about management systems, all management system standards make reference to regulatory requirements in some form or the other. And one of the weaknesses I have seen in this voluntary world of consultants as well as certification bodies, very poor knowledge of regulations. We should never forget, but that's the law of the land that has to be followed. And the management system ought to take into account the compliance to the regulation in some form or the other. To my mind, we do not have a good legal instrument to notify regulations. BIS Act is there. It is more freedom now when it has been amended in 2016, but still it's not the best solution. It still has several problems, including one which says that we can't, market surveillance cannot be done by anybody but BIS, nobody has power. And market surveillance is not voluntary standards body's job actually. So still there is a thought in the government how to get over this problem. Then another issue is that a lot of our regulations do not meet international standards, and which we need to upgrade. Otherwise, we'll struggle in the foreign market. For example, even today, if you ask drugs and cosmetics people, are we following WHO GMP? They'll say nearly, but nobody will say yes, we are. So we haven't still reached the level, despite pharma being, I think we are exporting 200 countries. Indian pharma industry that way has been a great success, but a very few of them are actually WHO GMP compliant. Most of them are not. And therefore the need to use accreditation and leverage accreditation, which we are not doing yet. Using third-party assessment, in some provision there is no loss, there is no provision at all, so you can't use third-party bodies. And regulators are still reluctant. They don't want to lose control, so they feel, why should we? I mean, very reluctantly, CDSU has done medical devices, but they are very reluctant. Market surveillance is a huge problem in India, especially under BIS Act. In drugs and food, we have state governments as doing market surveillance, however effective they are, but there is machinery in place. In under BIS Act, there is no machinery, but only BIS offices who do not want to do. Honestly, I have been in BIS. That's the part that BIS doesn't want to do really, enforcement, and yet it is being forced to do enforcement and market surveillance because the BIS Act is worded in such a way it doesn't allow power to anybody else. Our participation in international standard continues to be very poor, which is unfortunate. I think we have enough expertise and money to spend to participate better, but somehow we haven't got our act together. Our response to importing countries' regulations, I don't think we are reading importing countries' regulations at all when they are in draft stage. Do you, I was surprised. EU brought in something called Traditional Herbal Medicinal Products Directive, THMPD. It gave 7 years of transition time, 7 years. And yet at the end of that 7 years, we were not ready. It's amazing actually. We are, despite being a very intelligent country in many ways, how poorly organized we are. This is one of the areas. Awareness of, it's very low in government, very low in industry, very low in stakeholders. I mean, even explaining difference between standards, technical regulations is a problem. Explaining conformity assessment procedure, what it means is a problem. Accreditation, what is it? How many times I have answered a question, how is accreditation different from certification? How are you different from BIS? So, I mean, if the basic awareness is not there, so you can imagine the rest of the thing. So we are, to my mind, we are still at a very low stage as far as handling these issues in entirety is concerned. It's very hard to get mutual recognition. All the provisions are there in TBT agreement. It's very difficult, but we should remember that one-sided recognitions are possible, like EIC has got for seafood. And recognition doesn't mean that you have to follow the same standards or same regulations. What is needed is your capability to manufacture and test and certify to importing countries' regulations. If you can demonstrate that, it is possible. Our India-Singapore agreement on telecom products and electrical products is based on this philosophy. We never, the standards may not have been harmonized, but we still recognized each other. Another issue is that it's typical problem of underdeveloped countries and developing countries that we accept foreign accreditation very easily, but the foreign countries don't accept. So we will find ways of, we'll be told, no, foreign accreditation is good, foreign certification is good, let's accept that in our regulations. Even in medical devices regulation, you can see. But it doesn't happen with foreign countries, doesn't. So we haven't still got a grip over this problem. We still are struggling with this issue. In some cases, we stand firm. I've been part of India-US dialogue, and US wants that we should accept their test reports on electronic and IT products. And we have stood firm, no, we will not accept unless you accept the principle. In fact, I have argued with US side. I was asked to argue, and I did. That, well, let's agree on a principle. If you think APLAC, ILAC equivalence is okay, let's write down that principle and then agree that across sectors we will do that, which they are not willing. So we said, no, we will not agree. Even today, we have not agreed. So what's the way forward for in this situation? I mean, complying with WTO regime is a challenge for developing countries. It's a challenge for us also. It has been a challenge. We haven't still got our act right, but it's also an opportunity because the market opens up. You can go all over the world. What we need is a good legislative framework, which we don't have. Unfortunately, my own view remains the AS Act should be discarded as far as regulations are concerned. We should have a separate act for. I've been arguing unsuccessfully. I could get it as far as Prime Minister's office once. And that's all I could achieve. I've been arguing. I'm probably a lone voice arguing that there should have a separate act for technical regulations. Most barriers that we face are because developed countries have adopted international standards, and it takes us time. So we need to do the same, quickly get to international standards as they are being developed. There's no other way. I think there's no other way but to follow international standards and quickly upgrade your domestic regime to international standards. If we don't do that, we'll continue to have problems. And we need more participation, more data. We do not have data to support anything at all. And we are very poor at data. I mean, the previous program where Rama was asking how many medical labs we have in the country, nobody knows. I mean, why go that far? How many certification bodies we have in India, nobody knows. How many inspection bodies are there in India? We are very poor at data. So unless we do this, rectify this part, we'll continue to have problems. So this is all that I wanted to say as far as TBT agreement and its implications for us are concerned. Any questions? You are welcome to ask.
Sir, I have a question. Alok Jain this side. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Sir, what about quality control orders? Are these fitting in the regime of domestic regulation?
Quality controls are domestic regulation, of course. They are for domestic regulation, and they
Okay.
apply equally to imports.
And these domestic regulations, can we make it the part of WTO at one point of time?
It is part of WTO. All these quality control orders are notified to WTO.
So it has to be notified, only then we can release it.
Actually, the WTO says that if you are following international standards, you don't need to notify. But if you follow any other standard, you must notify it. So, but in India, as I understand the system, every draft QCO, when it is issued, a copy goes to Commerce for notification to WTO. So we notify all of them.
And most of the important point here is the most of the QCO is referring the IS standards. So
Yeah, that's right.
So you are saying it's a domestic regulation, but it is a part of the WTO as well.
No, part of WTO means it's following the rules of WTO, and
Okay.
it applies to imports, so it affects every foreign country who wants to export to India. So therefore, it's part of a global regime. But it's a regulation. But we call it domestic regulation, but primarily it's meant. See, the idea of regulation is not to stop imports. Please remember, the basic idea of regulation is public interest. Each government has to bring in regulations to protect public interest. You want to protect your people's health, you want to protect their safety, you want to protect them from harmful goods. Now you will bring in regulation. Now it so happens incidentally they apply to imports. It's not that you are bringing regulation for imports and then applying to domestic market. It's the reverse actually. So the driver should be reversed. Where is it that our people are facing a problem? And is it a health or safety issue? If it is, the government should say, yes, we need to bring in regulation. How intensive that regulation will be depends on the risk of that product. So if it is transformer, which is B2B, from a manufacturer, it goes to electricity board, I may not have a very intensive regulation. But when it is electric iron, which is coming to a common person, uneducated person who is using iron, I would have to be more strict that it's absolutely safe.
So if I have correctly understood, I'm sorry I'm asking a lot of questions actually. It was very interesting session actually. Can we have the domestic regulation and the regulation for the import for the same product in the country, like for toy? So let us take the example of toy. So you said that.
The toys, I can tell you, the toy is one example where we put in a regulation for imports, which was incorrect. So the day it was put in, I cautioned, I was there in service, I cautioned DIPP that you will be challenged in WTO. So please quickly bring in a domestic regulation as well. The day domestic regulation comes, the DGFT notification will go. I'll give you another example. In the year 2000, some of the ex-BIS probably here would remember, in the year 2000, when when somebody realized that domestic regulation applies to imports also, DGFT issued a notification that all compulsory under BIS imports should also meet. And then in that one category of products in that was steel. And it so happened, it got challenged. And in that challenge, it had to be withdrawn because steel was not justified at that point of time based on health or safety grounds. Later on, we did the homework properly and came back and regulated steel. Now we do regulate steel, and now we have enough justification to regulate that. So domestic regulation automatically applies to import. For import, you should not bring in a regulation. If you bring in a regulation, you are non-compliant and you can be challenged. Toys is one example, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Sir?
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, this quality control orders, like Alokji was asking, right? Quality control order. Now, is it linked only to a regulated sector, or even its quality control orders are there for even a non-regulated businesses also, sectors also?
No, by very definition, they are regulations.
Okay, so they are regulation. That is
term. Somehow it has come into use. It's not, the term is not used in the act itself. The act itself says by way of an order, the government may. It doesn't use the term quality control order, but somehow they have come to be called as QCOs. They are certainly regulations. They are technical regulations.
Now, for non-regulated industries, see, by definition, what you had shown as regulated industries are very, very few. Non-regulated industries, then what kind of spec that you give, at least for regulated businesses, you're talking about quality control orders.
Regulated, non-regulated, if it is not a health, safety, deceptive trade practice, national security, environment related issue, those products which are in non-regulated center, voluntary standards will apply. Now, what will apply is market decides. It will be decided by the market. It will be decided by the buyers, by suppliers themselves. It's a free play.
Where do we have in the Commerce Ministry, or who is actually publishing which are the regulated industries and which are the unregulated industries? Where do we have this in the portal actually, sir? Which portal it is available?
Actually,
I was also hunting. I was hunting in
FIO. I think the nearest you can get is FIEO has a portal.
Oh, FIO is it? Okay.
FIO has a portal on which you will get this information.
Okay, somewhere I read because
Commerce had funded CII. CII-NC portal is also there, which may give this information.
No, actually, I need to hunt because see, though the many things are voluntary, industry doesn't know many things. Like then if it is industry standards, then
yes.
See, for example, I am asking a simple question: jewelry, for example, take jewelry.
Yeah.
Now, jewelry manufacturing is not a regulated sector, right?
Not yet, but it is being regulated. The order is out. The date implementation is
January. Okay. Now,
January 2021. I think it's been postponed to June 2021. Gold and I think silver jewelry also is covered under that order.
Okay. And at the moment, I'm asking. See, for example, now there is a jewelry retail export council from UK has approached. For example, through a CB.
Yeah.
So they wanted to do programs for the jewelry manufacturers.
Yes.
I had also taken up with the Jewelry Manufacturers Association. They said it can be done.
Yeah.
When I was actually checking with you, you said these are the industry standards.
Yes.
Private standards. You said these are the private standards and industry standards.
No,
so caution.
Some of them are industry standards. The standard you asked me was a private.
Generally, you said just check whether they are industry standards or private standards, and caution has to be exercised before introducing them to the industry.
Yes, because I have taken a view. I mean, of course, now I'm a freelance, but earlier in my service, I took a view. I am not going to promote these private standards in India because they have become a barrier for us. But if they become a problem for us, I am going to do capacity building. So their approach was slightly different.
Okay.
Because they are coming from interested parties. Some people, I'll give you a very simple example. Stone goes from India, granite. Granite is exported to Germany. And in Germany, it's used in cemeteries. It's used for cremation. Or rather, so it's a sensitive issue. So somebody raises an issue there that stone coming from India, it doesn't follow environmental laws. It doesn't follow child labor, etc. In quarrying, there's child labor. So they sell an idea that let's create a voluntary certification system, and all quarries, those who want to export, should go through that So, these are being created sometimes with profit motive also, these private standards. So I would be wary of these private standards and would be
Right.
really interested.
Yeah.
Are they really useful for our industry? We should not be promoting just like that. We should be careful in promoting those.
See, we need to be, because as consultants, even we are not aware of this. And when you
certification body will market every certification scheme that it is part of, whether needed by industry or not. So we have to be careful, of these interests.
Okay, and I was then one of the industry forums recently, there was a discussion jewelry manufacturing. For example, I'm quoting, this is a recent case that I had I was handling. They said, not many things are not all right. So that is why this industry requires a lot of checks, and this is promoted by some global jewelry council. But honestly, none of us know what is the origin, background, whether those standards, because private standards need some validation, right?
Yes, there is right now. There is no system of validation of private standards worldwide.
No, what is stopping commerce? At least certainly make the announcements. See, for example, even in the industry, in the marketplace, non-regulated sectors, private standards are available. Maybe some other, which are all the categories of standards which are there.
Government may not want to endorse those private standards by putting on their website. I can understand the reluctance of the government to get involved and being seen to be endorsing private standards.
But when you don't communicate the message to the industry will never know. See, there is nothing like a market demands it. By and large, today.
Actually, I had proposed in one standards conclave in 2014 that QCI can act as a hub for private standards. Unfortunately, that part has not functioned very well. Well, Alok Jain is listening here. He can go back and tell. That part has not functioned as well as I thought it should, but because QCI did have that kind of it's kind of non-governmental in certain ways. Private sector, I didn't find. Honestly, the private industry associations are not into. They would not sustain anything which is social service. They are all too commercial. So it needs a body which will do some social service to the industry.
No, it is more than that. The communications, see, for example,
or the export promotion councils should be talking about that, because when it becomes a hurdle for export, then export promotion council should be interested. But none of the export promotion councils has any focus on standards at all. So there is a whole lot of problem.
See, because one question that is being asked commonly in the industry forums is, when many things are, you are saying on the other side of the table, these are voluntary, that's it. But industry is asking things are not all right. And then, see, that is where the industry is not even aware and which are the categories of standards that are there. See, they say customers are asking, we are doing it. Regulator is asking, we are doing it.
Yes, Rama, industry is very ignorant. So whose job is to promote consciousness industry? Maybe industry bodies should come forward. There is a recommendation that industry bodies should have standard cell to promote standards and awareness about standards. I have had examples of food industry coming in and saying, oh, I sent such and such consignment to such and such country and it got rejected. I said, do you realize there are regulations? You can't simply send achar. He said, I sent achar. Arey yaar, aise achar bhej doge? Did you ask what are the regulations applicable to you? Did you test to those regulations? Did you see? He was not aware. So he thinks like in the flight you can take a sweet box and a achar bottle. You can export like this. So the awareness, I agree with you. The awareness industry is very low. Awareness in government itself is low. Once government recognizes that this is needed, then they will do.
But they can just give if not a quality control order, I don't know, they can call it as some order, communicate to all the industry platforms. Like, these are all the various types of standards. Now, these are linked to regulations. These are linked to importing countries regulation. These are all purely industry focused. These are all non-regulated.
One good place to go for that would be you go to the BIS website, you look at the list of compulsory standards under BIS, and you look at the voluntary standards. You get a fair idea. You will get an idea that BIS has 20,000 standards, out of which 12,000 are product standards, out of which only about 200 standards are under regulation, which means 12,000 minus 200 are voluntary standards for products. They are available. So one good place to go will be to go to BIS website and see what are the standards.
But BIS mandates everything. Where is voluntary? Everything.
There are voluntary. There are voluntary. People have forgotten that BIS has voluntary standards. There are 12,000 product standards, out of which only 200 are compulsory. There are another 800 which are under certification. Total 1,000, and beyond 1,000, 12 minus 1, 11,000 products. There is no certification today because nobody has asked for certification. And BIS now has become so focused on compulsory that it doesn't promote its own standards. So
no, then we have to, then please rope them in, sir, because they need to actually come and talk in industry forums. What is it in their website? Who will go and visit? They have to come and talk.
Well, yes, you're right. You're right. They have to come and talk. Yes.
Yeah, that's all it is. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Anil, one point I wanted to just raise, and maybe you can clarify this also. Will we not get some amount of information from the DGFT website? Because they also, although it will be mostly for trade and exports and imports.
No, hardly anything on standards devoted to standards. No,
because I remember at one point of time, Commerce Secretary was trying to compile this list of standards which are applicable and what's mandatory and what's not. I'm not sure if it was done finally.
No, it finally, as I know, FIO has a website in which a lot of information on regulations is available. Second, Commerce did fund about 5 years back a website developed by CII in partnership with ANSI, on which information relating to regulations and voluntary standards, this regime is available. But CII one, I think, is not very updated. You create a website, then the problem is who updates that.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
But DGFT, no, doesn't have.
Yeah, okay, there's another point while I have the mic with me. Yeah. You did mention that there are 3 different agreements.
Yes.
The TBT, SPS, and PSA, no?
For products.
Yeah, PSI. But I think there's also the trade facilitation agreement now, which is very important. And that relates to simplifying procedures for imports and exports. And it has a link to the TBT and SPS agreements. So possibly that link can also be drawn in future talks.
Well, I'll have to look at it. I've never read through that trade facilitation agreement. I've heard it being talked about. Always thought that it relates to more about customs and all kinds of procedures and not really technical regulations.
Yeah, it is the procedures for trade, and it's also the linkage between the customs as well as these organizations which are dealing with regulatory and other standards.
Yeah, that linkage now has been realized. So in the commerce meetings today, customs is always present when these discussions are taking place. So now that linkage has been realized.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, thanks. And thanks for the acknowledgement which you gave.
And this is, people do not know, this is Shashi Sareen, the one I thanked. The one who's asking.
Sir, I just wanted to share with everybody that, WTO has created a portal for importing procedures. Now, all the importing countries' procedures, regulations are there. I request all the participants to refer that. Actually, they have created all importing countries' procedures, regulations there in one portal.
And another place to go would be to go to the WTO inquiry points in India, a TBT inquiry point as well as SPS inquiry point, to get to know about regulations in other countries.
No, I will share this link also, because this was launched very recently, sir, because I keep reading this now, because even to the part of the learning process. This is the portal, exclusive portal, importlicensing.wto.org. So this is what I request all to refer. I think, it has gone to 1 second. I'll have to share it with everyone. Okay, right. This is the link. importlicensing.wto.org. This talks about various countries' import licensing procedures. At least at a glance, we can know what each country is asking.
Okay.
So, any other questions? Still, it is a very tough subject, sir. It actually goes about our head. We have to reread several times.
Yeah, I mean, some fundamental principles, if they become clear, the clarity between the standards and regulations. The fact that regulations have to be on specific grounds. You can't just regulate every product. The fact that regulations will apply equally to domestic industry as well as imports. You can't have differential regulations. These are some of the fundamentals that we should be aware. The fact that there has to be stakeholder consultation and interested party consultation, some time given. These are some of the things that we should be clear about.
Okay.
the fundamentals of this. The fact that there is a provision for equivalence or provision for recognition of each other's systems with certain conditions to be able to explore those options.
Okay. So any other questions?
I was lucky to be in EIC. I was lucky to participate in India-Singapore negotiations way back in 2003. And Shashi was my boss, who just spoke. And I was lucky to be part of India-US trade negotiations for last 4 years, till last year. They took place alternately in the US and India. So the last one was in India. So you get to know the nuances and the complications and complexities of all these things.
Still, we will also write to Commerce, sir, because or DPIIT, whichever is the wing, it is important because I personally feel when there is a huge void that is created with a voluntary this thing, CBs are pushing aggressively, selling all kinds of standards under the sun.
Yes. So
because industry is not aware, honestly, they're going by what CBs are promoting, but there is no absolutely no check or
no guidance available.
Yeah, so we need to communicate that message that guidance standards, they need to check at least these are all the places, these are all the portals, this is the point where they have to go and check. Something should be available by the Commerce, sir. They need not regulate, but they need to give those guidelines and pointers to the industry.
Go ahead, write to them. Frankly, the standards agenda today is being led by Commerce today.
Commerce, that is what we will write actually, because there is a void. See, they can give, they can put all these things, this thing and send communications to all the CIAs and FICIs. They're doing programs. Even QCI, even LOG can do from training division all these programs, or NBQP. I don't know, whichever is the body which is doing it. They don't know. Even when we say market-driven standards in a particular sector, which are the market-driven standards? Somebody should come and talk, right, sir?
Yes, that's right. Alokji needs to broaden his vision of his division.
Right.
Wants to do that.
No, because what is happening is when nobody is defining, at least market-driven, somebody should list out these are the 10 standards which are globally market-driven. And then they should know that, rest of the things are not needed.
There is an organization called International Trade Center in Geneva. If you go to ITC website, you will find
which one, sir?
International Trade Center.
Okay.
ITC Geneva. If you go to their website, you will find a listing of many private schemes there. A lot of private schemes are listed there.
Okay.
So, so that's the place to go. As of now, probably that has the biggest database of private schemes.
Because when you told me about this jewelry, this thing, then I put it on hold, because what happens is we take it through the Jewelry Manufacturers Association. They just go by that UK and US logos and brands. They will promote it. All the manufacturers will go for it, at least, all the leading brands, but then it's coming from some international council, but then nobody knows anything about the background.
No, I would only take cognizance of a private standard demand if it comes from my buyer. I mean, not from a third party. Third party would have some other.
See, sir, buyers are asking only. See, sir, textiles. You take textiles and garments. Buyer audits are happening. They're not asking for very limited certifications. Otherwise, they just walk in and they just do their own audits and customer audits. That's it.
When it's a buyer demand, well, I would, as an industry, exercise my option. If it is not too expensive and I want to sell to this buyer, I'm willing to put up with this demand. If I find it's too cumbersome, I will say I don't want to sell to you. So I would rather respect a buyer's demand more than a CB selling to you certification. One should be very wary, or a third party selling to you some certification. I would be wary of that.
No, we need to write actually just to give some guidelines. Commerce has to give some guidelines to those apex bodies, asking them to do some industry education on all this. It is because ignorance is the biggest this thing, and we don't blame the industry also, sir, because they're asking why are all these things being allowed all these years? That is the first question they're asking.
Rama, you can say that industry education is necessary. At least in NABCB, when I became CEO, I put aside budget for one program a month on industry education. Industry education, the decision makers do not sit through a program. It's very hard to. They'll send some middle level people. That doesn't work. Or we need a very small capsule, short 1 hour, 1.5 hour sessions for the decision making people in the industry. so that they can take the right decision. Because middle level people don't take decisions.
No, you're absolutely right, sir. But then the platforms also there. See, what happens is open forums, when you do a program mass, they will only nominate their executives, quality executives or middle
That's
level
right.
teams
Yes,
only.
that's right.
So when you do it in other platforms and other forums and things like that, somewhere the entrepreneurial forums directly, audience may be limited, but they are the decision makers.
So rather than devote a program on quality, if they are having their annual general meeting, you put a one hour session on quality. There will be everybody will listen.
That is what it is. See, because there's some specific sessions where you'll actually see the owner. See, for example, I will tell you, this is something I quoted last time. You look at all those expos that are happening, right?
That's
Expos are the places, generally, if you see, the promoter will come and sit, or his top management, especially this international expos and things like that. They don't send anybody else. They don't send anybody else. And reputed expos. And that is the place where actually we need to go and pitch and then, have a session, because they are the ones who will listen to you. But in all other places, it is only middle level, sir. They are only coming there only for the certificate, honestly speaking.
Yeah,
Even Alok, do you do, apart from this training and capacity building programs, other than all these things, you are also focusing on industry programs?
Yeah, we are planning to focus on the industry program as well. I just want to ask one question, Johri sir. What is the mechanism of dissemination of this kind of knowledge in the other countries, especially the developed country? How Europe, like we talk about the Europe and US, like Madam is talking about the approaching to Ministry of Commerce or Department of Commerce. So what is the mechanism they have to disseminate this knowledge?
I mean, some of the standard things they have, everybody has a TBT inquiry point and SPS inquiry point, which is supposed to be the place you go and inquire about. Whether they do industry programs like WIDO, I have no idea if they do something like this in Europe or in US. I don't know. I don't have an idea. What kind of...
is it a good idea to collaborate with them and to conduct these programs? Are they the right person, the TBT inquiry point in India?
I don't think TBT inquiry point has... I mean, it will have information on how many notifications have been issued. You'll have to find for each, I mean, you think of topics and then decide which is the right organization or right person. I don't think I can simply say that for everything you should go to place X. If it is seafood export, I'll tell you go to EAC.
Okay.
But if it is metal export, then you'll have to find out who is the right. For each thing, we'll have to search for the right people.
Right.
My expertise in India is available, but not so readily available in the sense that it's in pockets.
Right.
So general awareness is low, and so we'll have to find experts. And sometimes we have to get foreign experts.
And MSME ministry now is talking about pushing on, making MSME businesses globally ready. Now, you need to do country-specific list out the top, at least 10 or 15 global destinations, and we need to go on educating them about the importing countries. If it is a regulated business, if it is not a regulated business, at least the basic exam we need to train them, no, sir.
Yeah, that's right. So that's why recently the article that I wrote and gave to Startup India, and they put it on their website. Actually, a similar one I sent to MSME also, that you can put it on your website as well. Well, it applies to the MSMEs also. They should know what is voluntary standard, what is private standard, what is regulation, what they have to do.
We have got some clarity now. At least we will pick up the non-regulated sectors. Anyhow, regulated sectors, many things are defined in black and white. We will pick up unregulated sectors and emerging sectors, where at least you have now 10 or 15 domains, manufacturing sectors, where they said production linked incentive scheme, blah blah blah, and all. And all of them, whether it is for the catering to the domestic market or export markets, at least pick up some core 5 or 10 sectors, ones which are not regulated, and then we need to see which are the standards, which are industry standards, which are the market driven, which are maybe required by the importing companies, countries' regulations. And we need to actually attempt with one sector and see how it is coming up.
Sure, do that. Pick up a sector, consult the industry, pick up a sector where there's a concentration, and they are exporting, and then
only we will know which are the customer driven, which are the market driven, which are CV driven. Then only we will know.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you. I got it. Thank you, sir. So, any other questions by anybody? Anything in the chat? No questions.
In the chat, I don't know whether there are any questions.
Shobha ma'am asked one question. Private sustainability standards appear to be another way of the developed nations creating non-tariff trade barriers. I don't know. There are so many private sustainability standards. We did some programs on bond sucro and all that recently, sir, last
Yes,
month. And we
yes.
don't know whether they're
See,
all private standards or what it is. None of us know.
See, private sustainability standards are coming from private stakeholders generally. Governments are not directly involved. So we can't say that governments are creating it. But if governments are tacitly behind them, we would never know. But usually they are coming from private stakeholders. I mean, the whole forestry thing has been done by World Wildlife, WWF. The whole forestry regime, sustainable forest management has been driven by WWF. So they are coming from NGOs actually, more NGOs than government really. But it's a issue now. Increasingly, and the problem is that they are beginning to find a place in trade agreements. So governments are beginning to recognize them. They found a place in I think Trans-Pacific Agreement, which was between US and European countries. So we have to keep a watch on them and be careful about these private sustainability standards.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. So if there are no other questions, can we wind up or any questions?
Yeah, sure. I think I don't see any on the chat. Didn't see anything.
So thanks to all the participants. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Keep joining us monthly, only one session, just 1 hour. Keep joining us, maybe different topics. You can all send us some idea, suggestions about what kind of topics that you would like to have. Then we can organize it accordingly. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good night, everybody.
Bye bye.